Season 2 ends with Beth apparently shooting Rio. And Turner is there as well. And it's, you know, she's going in. She thinks she's going to go in and just try to pay off her situation. Turns out he's watching her. The one person who was watching her and tearing her down and setting her up over and over and over and playing mind games with her is now out of the picture. So instead of sort of trying to clean up her life and go back to normal suburban life, Beth decides to start her own empire. And this is her opportunity to start from the bottom and work her way up, and she decides to make that choice. Well, you start out season 3 and you see Ruby at the nail salon, and you see Annie in ballet, and Beth is working at a paper store, and it seems like they're just trying to make ends meet and pay the rent and protect their children. And then you realize very quickly that all of these jobs contribute to their counterfeit money making. And they're all drawing from their daytime activities to come in and pull their forces together. Trust is one of the main topics that we approach, and I think a lot of it has to do with these women trusting one another and about families and who you can trust and what you would burden someone with too, the sort of the things that you protect people from as well. Well, I think Beth's changed quite a bit from season 1. Season 1 was sort of her being just blown away by the idea of going to this crime world, outraged in a way, but seeing it as the only way out of her scenario. A one and done, we robbed this grocery store, we're out, we've taken care of our problems. Season 2, we found her struggling with the fact that she was good at it and enjoying it a little bit, and that it was quite sexy to her, and getting her power back and discovering what that meant. These women were in too deep from the pilot of this entire show. They don't know what they're doing. I mean, that's what adds to the storytelling and the humor and the fear and the anxiety. Is it's hard enough to run your own business, a real stand-up business in the community. It's even harder to start a crime business because you have no support, and everything is a secret, and everything is a risk. So these women are in over their heads. They're so deep now. I don't know how they could ever come back, but I think that's the thing, is that they teeter on the idea that they could. They always feel like, oh, we're just around the corner from just being normal moms. I think these women are incredibly relatable. They're not running around with criminals on the dark web. They don't know, all these terms and things, they don't even understand what they mean. So they have to use things like the nail polish that they know, and the woman down the street who studied graphic design, and this is the world that they run in. And they haven't been invited into that other world. They are not welcome in that other world. So they have to accomplish the same sort of things in their own homes. I think everyone can relate to wanting to support your family and doing anything that you could to do it. And we play with that slippery slope of, well, if you've tried it once, does it seem as bad the next time? And what is worse than the next? And what's worse than that? And it's always them sort of dipping their toe in the water and then pulling back. And it has to do with raising their children and keeping them fed and keeping them warm and all the things that we would do for one another. And that was the reason they did this in the very beginning. And it continues to be so. But now it's other things as well. And it's always to protect one another. But the reasons are starting to get more and more selfish, which money can do to people. I think in season 3, you'll find your favorite mom criminals doing what they do, not very well. But this time they are unencumbered. They are not being looked after. No one's watching them. They can start fresh. And instead of going back to their normal lives, they decide to create their own crime empire by themselves.
So at the end of season 2, we have a bit of a shocker because one of our leads that the fans like a lot gets smoked, or at least we think he gets smoked. Uh, that's certainly what Beth is hoping. That's certainly what Ruby and and Annie are hoping. And we're lucky we didn't have our hands in it, but we kind of feel like we can breathe a little bit. So at the end, after the big scene with Rio and Beth and Turner, um, we end the season with Beth coming up with a plan where we control the whole money laundering, well, money making and money laundering. So we get into season 2 having started trying to figure out how we're going to do that, like trying to get our chemistry together and figure out our paper and all of that. So the girls are in a position to be in control of every step of the quote unquote business. You try to be resourceful, you try to just figure things out. And they have somehow figured out how they can get this counterfeiting thing together. And, having Ruby work in the nail salon to have access to chemicals that they need, to have Annie have a job where ones are readily available. And then Beth working in the paper store where she has access to printers and to paper and that sort of thing. They've done all the little things that they feel that they need. And, we realize in the first or second, I'm not sure, that we just haven't gotten the art down. And so that's when Beth tries to get somebody else in who's better at the art, much to Annie's chagrin. But if it's not working, it's not working. So they're by hook or by crook, they're going to figure out a way to make this, counterfeit money look legit. Stan and Ruby have been through thick and thin. I think they're right now they're getting along. They're a little bit in the murky, but it's definitely running smoother than it had been when he was on the police force. And now he's got a job. He's got to work, and so security is a job that he can do, and security at a strip club is a job that he can do and make decent money. So Ruby's not excited about it, but Stan's like, look, we gotta get this cash. We've got to pay for these meds for this kid. So he's gonna do whatever it is he has got to do. We found ourselves beholden to this gangster. And so this season, we've chosen to do everything ourselves. We're no more working for the man, if you will, the gangster man, gang friend. This year, bitches are doing it for themselves, as they say. So I think that everyone should tune in because you're going to find out what went down in that warehouse space with Turner and Rio, and then you're gonna find out how these women come back and figure it all out in this new dynamic.
The opening of season 3 is all about kind of it shows them all in their new different jobs, and you don't really know why, and you don't really understand what they all pertain to, and they're all sort of benevolent enough you don't really think much of it, and then you figure out, okay, Annie's a valet person because she's actually getting all these $1 bills, and you figure out everybody, Ruby is doing nails because she's using the acetone and the stuff and the paperwork, and all of it is sort of because they're creating this counterfeit money, which is, and they need all of those different elements to put it together and actually get this done themselves. So it's actually pretty ingenious, and I just think it's cool. I love how it sort of builds into this first episode where you don't even really know what's going on until you sort of see all the pieces come together a little ways in. And I think that's, where we really have our strengths, is just sort of seeing
oh, that's how it happens. That's how it works. You know, you get this peek into the criminal world that maybe you just assume, oh, who knows how they make counterfeit money, but you actually kind of get to see this is how you do it, and anybody can do it. Not that you should, but you could. But don't. Please. We don't want you to at NBC. I think in general, kind of Annie, where we find her is, you know, she's sort of at a little bit of a turning point. You know, she allowed herself to be vulnerable and have, which I don't think she does very much, and have this relationship at towards the end of the last season. And I think it really became something meaningful for her. And, you know, she let him into her life and her child's life and all this stuff. And I think obviously, you know, he was not being completely honest. And I think that was really devastating for her. And I think it sort of triggered something in her where I think usually she immediately goes to a defense mode and kind of tries to sort of plow through her pain, not thinking about things and just move through things. But I think she's sort of starting to, I think also anytime anything happens that affects her son, I think that is really the only time that it really gets in for her. So to see her son affected in this way by, you know, her allowing this person who was not trustworthy into their lives, I think seeing that damage kind of makes her at least want to start crawling towards getting better and becoming more of a well-rounded person, a mature person, somebody who can take responsibility and take care of her family and herself. And so I think we kind of start to see that in her a little bit. She'll still always be the same kind of goofy gal, but I think there's just an element in her that's like, okay, maybe I need to be a little more introspective. Maybe I need to actually try to figure out what is going on so I don't keep making these same exact mistakes over and over with people. You know, kind of the brilliance of this show is these women just keep getting backed into further and further into corners, and yet they always find a way to kind of use their strengths, their whatever they have that's unique to them as moms, as normal people, not criminals, etc. They sort of are able to use those skills to their advantage and find ways of getting out of the situations that they've gotten themselves into. But I mean, frankly, a lie is a lie, and it is a situation where every time you tell one, you have to remember the one you told and continue to tell it, and then more and more and more to kind of get yourself out of that. I would definitely go to whatever ends of the earth I had to make sure my family or my loved ones were okay and safe and taken care of. Luckily, I don't have to rob a store yet. I'm, again, not saying that I won't. I probably won't. I'm going to really try not to. And I definitely won't do it in any way that's affiliated with NBC, which they also make me say. But yeah, of course, I think I would do anything to keep my family safe too. And I think that's what makes these women so relatable and understandable is you go, I would do whatever it takes to take care of the people that I love as well. So, you know, it's kind of a tough position to be in. And then it sort of becomes the question of, well, when is enough enough? When can you stop? And then do they want to stop? And how does it actually really play into what kind of people they've become and who they really are? One of the most, to me, fun and interesting and relatable parts of the show is that, you know, we don't think like criminals. We aren't criminals so far. And so the skill set that we bring to the table, especially all three of us, which I've always felt we all sort of round out a piece of the puzzle and like all three of us together make a complete sort of mastermind in our own way. But it's all sort of skills that you wouldn't conventionally use towards a life of crime. So I think that is sort of where the amusing and also the moments of going, oh yeah, I never even thought about that. They can just do this stuff, use the thing from the PTA or their mom meeting of this and that. There's, you know, all kinds of different worlds that can be explored that you don't get in any other kind of crime show, really. You get to kind of see them in their element and see how they would work without a boss, see how they would run things if they didn't have anything to be scared of or anybody that they had to look to that was above them. And so I think you'll see some interesting tinkering of systems to try to come up with, you know, them kind of making their own way in this new world.
Where is the buzz?
Oh, yeah. Where is the buzz? You said
We used to be a
was
singer.
mine.
Where is the buzz?
Woo!